Dear students, have you ever thought why government spending tends to increase over time and how these trends are explained by various factors? So today we will have an in-depth discussion on how demand and supply theories explains trend in public expenditure. I am Shahima Zebin, lecturer accounting, School of Business, Bangladesh Open University. Joining me my colleague.
This is Soeda Shagin Akhtar, lecturer of economics, School of Business, Bangladesh Open University. Thank you Jabin for inviting me here.
So this session is specially designed for the BBA students of Bangladesh Open University, and this topic will be covered from Unit 7 of Taxation and Public Finance course bearing the code 6329.
Dear students, it would be best to grab some papers and a pen before we begin our discussion, as you might need to make some necessary notes during the video broadcast, or you can also reach out to your designated course instructor from School of Business, Bangladesh Open University if you face any problems regarding the topic. Jabin, could you please explain what public expenditure is?
Yes, Shagin. Public expenditure refers to spending done by the government to fund public goods and services. So, government fund things like schools, education, healthcare, defense and law enforcement. And what is fascinating here, it is how some demand and supply theories explains why government spending increases over time. So, let's start with Wagner's law. It's also known as law of increasing state activity.
So, Wagner's law was proposed by Adolf Wagner in the late 19th century. It suggests that as an economy grows, the role of government also expands, and the public expenditure also increases not just in absolute terms, but also as a percentage of GDP. This means as the nations become wealthier, it gives the government opportunity to increase its activity. Jabin, could you please explain this, how it works from the demand perspective?
Of course, Shagin. So, from the demand perspective, when people's income rises, there will be more demand for public services like education, healthcare and social services. So, economic development brings about urbanization, industrialization and modernization, which creates complexity in the economy. And this complexity increases the demand for regulatory oversight, public services and public transport. So, as the cities grow, there will be more need for public roads, public transport, public utilities and which will driving up the government spending.
That's right. And from the supplies perspective, economic growth also enhances the government's capacity to raise more revenues. When businesses and individuals earn more, they are able to pay more taxes, which enables governments to fund additional services. And over the time, they tend to take on more responsibilities such as social welfare and cultural institutions, responding to the societal needs of a more wealthier and developed population.
Exactly. So, historically, we have seen that the countries which becomes wealthier, their public expenditure increases. So, this supports Wagner's law, which shows how economic development expanded the role of the government. So, now let us move on to Peacock-Weisman hypothesis. It is also known as displacement effect.
Dear students, this theory was proposed by Alan Peacock and Jack Weisman. It suggests that public expenditure increases in spurts rather than steadily over time, especially during the period of economic crises, recessions, natural disasters, wars. During this time, public expenditure experiences a sudden temporary increase. Jabin, could you please explain this from the demand perspective?
Yes. So, from the demand perspective, we see that during wars, economic downturns and pandemic, there is a surge need for government intervention. Think about COVID-19 pandemic. There was an immediate need for increased health care unemployment benefits and economic stimulus package. And even when the pandemic ends, there is also a higher level of public expenditure. People becomes accustomed to the public services.
That's a great example, Javin. And from the supply perspective, governments increases taxes or borrow money to meet the surge of demand during the crises. Once this high level of taxes are accepted by a society, it allows the government to maintain the increased public expenditure even after the crisis has ended. Historically, we have seen these events after the World War and the Great Depression.
Dear students, we have discussed so far the Wagner's law and Peacock-Wiseman hypothesis. Now let's talk about Musgrave's theory of public expenditure growth. It is introduced by Richard Musgrave. This theory suggests that there is three functions of public expenditure. They are allocation, distribution and stabilization. Shagin, could you explain it a little bit?
Sure, Jabin. The allocation function basically provides public goods like law enforcement, public health and social security. And the distribution function deals with the redistribution of income to ensure the equity of income in the society through social welfare programs and social security services. And the stabilization function deals with fiscal policy to stabilize the economy. As societies become wealthier, the demand for public expenditure and the redistribution of income also increases over time.
That's right, Shagin. So, economic growth also enhances the ability of the government to fund public goods and services. During periods of economic instability, government stabilizes the economy by using some tools, which are increased government spending and the taxation policy. And there is a continuous upward of public expenditure which are seen in the developed nation around the world.
So, speaking of increasing costs, we can talk about the Baumol's cost theory, which is especially relevant when we talk about sectors like healthcare and education.
Yes, Baumol cost disease explains why labor intensive industry like public services see cost rise rather than the productivity growth industry like manufacturing. So, public services like education, healthcare, defense and social services has a less productivity growth rather than the manufacturing industry, but their expenditure tends to rise when population increases.
Exactly. Since public sector wages must remain competitive with the private sector wages, the government face an increasing pressure to provide the same level of services. So, that is why we see even if the skills do not update or upgrade, the wages still go on. So, over the time we have seen an increasing spending in the sectors like healthcare and education.
So, dear students, now let us turn our attention to public choice theory, which creates a more political angle. This theory suggests that the public expenditure depends on the self-interested behavior of politicians, bureaucrats and voters.
So, now let us discuss about the demographic transition theory, which suggests that demographic changes, particularly the aging populations, influence the public expenditure.
Yes, as population age, there will be more demand for pension, healthcare, elderly care and social services. So, the countries which have aging population like Japan and European countries, the public expenditure happens on social services and healthcare services.
Also, the younger generation may demand for public services like employment support, housing and education. So, basically the demographic structure of any country plays a significant role in shaping its public expenditure.
So, to summarize, we have covered the Wagner's law, Peacock-Wiseman hypothesis, Musgrave's theory of public expenditure growth, Baumol's cost disease, public choice theory and demographic transition theory. So all this theory have explained that why government spending increases over time.
That's right, Jabin. Dear students, together these theories provide a robust framework for understanding how economic development, demographic transitions, technological changes influence the public expenditure.
We have finally reached at the end of this session. My dear students, I believe that you have understood of the topic covered. So please read Public Finance book written by Harvey S. Rosen and Ted Gare.
Dear students, keep watching our program, and if you face any problems, you can email us at deanoffice.sob@gmail.com, or you can also mail us addressed Office of the Dean, School of Business, Bangladesh Open University, Gazipur 1705. Thank you for being with us.